It is still the best documented volcanic eruption in human history. Mount St. Helens is located in the northern Cascade Mountains in the U.S. state of Washington. Although it has always been an active volcano, in the mid-19th century, the Smoking Mountain, as the local Indians called it, went into a dormant state. This lasted for 123 years. Then came the year 1980, and I saw a vivid demonstration of what the awakened element is capable of. It all started on March 15th with several small earthquakes, which indicated that the magma under the volcano was moving. The tremors continued in the following days. There were hundreds of them in total. At the end of March, smoke began to pour from the volcano, but above all, a giant bulge began to form on the northern slope of the mountain, which increased by 2.5 meters every day. And at the end, it was up to 150 meters high. Magma was accumulating under it, and at the same time, the top of the volcano was slowly decreasing. How much the change was noticeable can be clearly seen in these pictures. At the beginning of April, Governor Dixie Lee Ray declared a state of emergency in the entire area, and he introduced a permit-only hike around the mountain. Failure to comply was punishable by a fine of $500 or up to 6 months in prison. Under public pressure, he at least allowed the owners of cabins and huts in this uninhabited area to drive to pick up some of their belongings. That was on Saturday, May 17th. The next day at 10 a.m., the event was supposed to be repeated, but it never happened. It is Sunday, May 18, 1980, 8:32 a.m. local time. An earthquake measuring 5.1 on the Richter scale occurs under Mount St. Helens. As a result, the entire slope of the unstable mountain is torn off, creating the largest landslide in recorded human history. The volume of the torn-off mass is almost 3 cubic kilometers. To give you an idea, the world's largest office building, the Pentagon, would fit into this volume about 1,300 times. The mass rushed down the steep mountainside at speeds of up to 250 kilometers per hour. It took everything in its path with it and began to devastate the valley below the mountain. However, that was still nothing compared to what was to follow. The landslide released hot gases and steam originally buoyed up in the interior of the volcano. These began to expand rapidly and after a few seconds caused a huge explosion in the northern wall. It was almost unimaginable. The explosion had the power of 1,600 atomic bombs dropped on Hiroshima, and it released unimaginable heat. It destroyed all life within a radius of more than 10 kilometers and unleashed a wave of hot gases and ash that reached speeds of up to 1,000 kilometers per hour and temperatures of around 700 degrees Celsius. This is what the apocalypse looks like. In addition, the immense heat melted the snow on the mountainside and caused massive mud flows. And to complete all the original effects of the volcanic explosion, Mount St. Helens began to spew a huge column of smoke into the air. It reached up to 20 kilometers in the air, and a half-centimeter layer of ash fell to the ground at a distance of 500 kilometers downwind. It is actually a small miracle that an explosion of such magnitude did not cause a huge loss of human life. We owe this to the harsh nature of this part of the Cascade Mountains, where there is only a minimum of human habitation. Nevertheless, the volcanic eruption killed 57 people, according to official figures. Some of these losses are accompanied by crazy stories. Volcanologist David Johnson took a colleague on duty at the Coldwater 2 observation station, about 10 kilometers from the volcano's summit. Here he is in a photo taken about 13 hours before the eruption. It was he who confirmed at 6 a.m. on May 18th that he had not observed anything unusual. 2.5 hours later, he was the first to say, "It's here." He reported the eruption of the volcano on the radio. His station was completely destroyed by the explosion. Not a trace of it remained, and Johnson's body was never found. It was a huge shock for his colleagues because they considered the observatory completely safe. Photographer Robert Ladsborg was killed by a hot stream of hot gases. From a distance of several kilometers, he photographed the explosion, then hid the film in a cassette and in his backpack. He lay down on it to be safe, so that his pictures had the best chance of being saved. Trying to escape was not worth the least. His body was found covered in ash 17 days later. His unique photographs escaped destruction. Another photographer, Reed Blackburn, had planned to end his mission in the Valley of the Mountain on Saturday, May 17th. He ended up staying until the fateful Sunday. He was killed by a lava flow. This is what his car looked like when he was finally found 4 days later. His pictures of the explosion were not preserved because the high temperature of the lava damaged the film. A group of photographers around Gary Rosenquist were more fortunate, taking pictures from a distance of about 18 kilometers. When it seemed that they were lost, they were saved by a ridge to the west of them, which diverted the eruption. The photos that Rosenquist took from his car while fleeing fantastically document the entire explosion and the subsequent destruction. The eruption of Mount St. Helens caused a major ecological disaster. During and after the explosion, 7,000 large forest animals died, deer, bears, and moose, and in the spawning grounds in the adjacent streams, 12 million salmon. The forests around the mountain essentially ceased to exist. It is estimated that 10 million trees disappeared, were felled or burned. This is what it looked like on the surrounding lakes 30 years after the disaster. Property damage exceeded $1 billion. 200 homes, 27 bridges, and 300 kilometers of roads were destroyed. And the mountain itself? And today it looks completely different than before that fateful day. It no longer has that beautifully symmetrical shape, and it no longer towers so high above the surrounding landscape. It is exactly 2,549 meters above sea level, which is a full 400 meters less than it was back in 1980.